he understood how diligently they were working. The dedication you show to this board and the people of Hillsborough County has not gone unnoticed, and I want to personally say thank you.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Jim Williams, and we are right now getting ready for the vote by the Hillsborough County Commission that would basically push forward the Rays Stadium deal. And if they go ahead and pass it, which it looks like they will, then the stadium will be a real thing. So that's what we're watching right now. And so let's keep watching and we'll check it out.
I meant it, and I've held this deal against that standard. A standard that all 7 of us agreed to.
I'm on the show right now.
That deal provided a private contribution of just 25%. Previous boards have required nothing, not a red cent, from a private entity, and as a result, we still became Tampa Bay. The Rays are offering to fund 66% of a new public facility, a stadium that the county will own. And because a 25% contribution was enough for the Lightning, 62% has to be more than enough for the Rays. The team is putting in more than $1.3 billion, close to 2/3 of the cost, and covering every dollar of overrun. The county share is capped at $796 million, $100 million less than what was on the table in May. Hillsborough County will own the ballpark, collect the rent, and hold the 35-year agreement that keeps the team here. I come from Plant City, where you don't buy the first strawberry in the row, and District 4 did not buy the first stadium deal either. We held out, and now Tallahassee is subsidizing a long-awaited road project. The deal that was handed in May is not the deal in front of me today. It's better in every way. The only named project in this agreement is Lithia Pinecrest. If Tallahassee doesn't deliver the $100 million it was fought hard for, the county pulls that same amount back out of the ballpark. That protection exists because we negotiated it. That protection is for the county taxpayers. Before a single public dollar moves, the Rays have to prove their financing is in place, and if they don't, the money stays where it is. President Reagan gave us 3 words for exactly this moment, and they've held up for 40 years. Trust but verify. I'll be voting yes today because I trust the terms are right, and because 115 acres that currently pays us nothing will finally start paying for the things we need and enjoy across this entire county. I see Commissioner Bowles has gotten in the queue. I will wait to call the vote at this time.
Sorry for that. I was writing and I thought I pushed the button and apparently it didn't hold. I appreciate all my fellow commissioners' comments. I think there's been a number of great points made by everyone here. And I think that, over the last several months, I've been very consistent about how I was with my position that I wanted to look at this and keep an open mind about it. And to that point, I think I've done that. I do have a couple, excuse me, I do have a couple questions for these 2 nice ladies beside me. First, and Laura Lawson, I don't know if she's still here or not. She walked out. She brought up, Ms. Mandel, that the tax collector's office is going to be demolished and going to be destroyed and rebuilt because we just rebuilt it 10 years ago. And I believe, if I recall last night, you made a statement to that. Can we make that statement again to know that there's a protection there for that of sorts?
Yes. Right now, the tax collector's office is under a very long-term lease. I think the end date is 2063 as the end date. And I know that they have been also working with the college as it relates to that lease who took that over. Right now, I am under no understanding, and I've had this conversation with the attorney that's representing the tax collector through this process, that there is any plans to demolish that building, that lease will be honored by the college. Now, certainly there may be conversations in the future about what could potentially
You're
happen,
watching
but that will be a robust
the Hillsborough
discussion that will
County
have to
Commission
include the tax collectors and her staff so that they can feel comfortable with whatever decision is made. But I also understand that there is no plans to even start to develop, that's in a phase 2 or phase 3, those properties as of today. So that's where that
Matthew
is
has
at
joined
this
us. We're
moment. They do
watching
have that
the
long-term lease
Hillsborough
that will grant
County
them the protections moving
getting
forward.
ready to vote
Thank you.
on the Tampa
Yeah.
Bay Rays Stadium.
Of course, we don't know. Again, we've all talked about speculation, what happens in the future. We don't know, new governor, new legislature, anything could happen for that. To the same extent, there's been some articles in the papers and that have been circulating around about the Department of Juvenile Justice facility as well. You claimed last night to have some knowledge on that as well. And as I understand, this is something that's been in the works. And in fact, it even extends over to the center that's off of Columbus Avenue as well, that even though we broke ground there, that they determined, I think that there's some issues with that as well.
Yes, the site where there's been conversations that have been ongoing from what I've been told through our staff, John Mueller and the Department of Real Estate, that the conversations have been ongoing to relocate DGAJ since at least 2023, probably before then. There was a site, from what I understand, that was identified. I heard broke ground, but the problem was there were some issues with that site. So that has been continuing. Now, from what I do also understand is that the announcement to move them was not something we were aware of. That just came from the state, but we're working with them to create both a transition plan and to find appropriate places for them to at some point relocate. So we've been working through those issues through our staff.
So it is possible that this is a coincidence of sorts.
It is my understanding this has actually been in the works for a period of time. So
one that's not necessarily related to the other. Thank you. Excuse me very much. We're talking about TDT and the money that comes from that, and certainly, and Commissioner Whistle has pointed out that earlier that there's going to be bonds that are associated with that. We don't know what those bonds ratings are. Roughly, Ms. Wise, because we know this is your area of expertise, if we were to pull one today, what's the bond market for us? What's the kind of percentages we'll be getting? I've heard you yesterday, it was the worst in possible history that we could possibly get was today during the city meeting. Is that true? Is this the worst time in history?
The worst time in history?
Yeah.
Not to my knowledge,
Okay.
no. Okay.
Yeah.
And, I think just as an aside, because I am so proud of our bond ratings, we just, Tom just sent you a memo that we just had our water and sewer bonds upgraded to AAA rating.
Oh.
So the rating on our bonds is really paramount to us. And it is all part of the whole cash management and that we do for all projects.
So, but with the TDT money, which is also referred to kind of euphemism of bed tax, right? It's a bed tax, heads in beds. We talk about heads in beds, and heads in beds is what comes from visitors. So, and I thought I heard, and maybe I misunderstood, but earlier someone say that that we were bonding the CIT. That's not the case. We're not bonding. We're pay. That's a pay as we go, and that's the $90 million per year as we are going forward for the next 4 years.
And if we were ever to do something like that, we have so many options. We would never bond on a long-term basis for that purpose. We have our commercial paper program for any kind of short-term needs that we have, which
Right.
we utilize at the county from time to time.
Leave that on. I'm going to ask you another
Okay.
question. So, and bonding is a very common practice. I mean, so we've bonded we're bonding the one water plant. It's not ad valorem dollars, it's an enterprise fund, but this is a very common practice that we do here and governments do quite often.
It is because you want to ensure if you're going to bond, you don't want to bond longer than the useful life of your asset.
Right.
And so it's something that we're always looking at.
And
Right, it's just before you asked the question. So we were planning to bond about 30, 35
Okay.
years, which would not exceed the life of the asset.
Because we
Yes,
earlier determined that
Right.
would be about 50 years perhaps.
we're hoping.
Yes. Okay. Talked about ILAs. Is it possible, what kind of information, I want to go back to Ms. Mandel, and maybe one of the guys over there. What kind of, can different elements be added to the ILA that enhance the developer agreement in a way?
Well, let me just make sure I understand which ILA you'd be talking
Any
about.
ILA.
Any ILA allows you pursuant to statute to put in provisions to manage whatever it is the deal you're trying to structure.
So we could make an ILA agreement that, again, I'll use the word enhance, but not necessarily drop below what this development agreement has. Is that correct? If there's a standard in the development
There's
agreement.
opportunities to have those conversations, but we have to keep in mind that they have to also relate to this agreement, which has provisions on millage, those can't change. But anything that is something that we could look at different ratios and how we manage ratios, I think that those are something we can discuss.
What constitutes a construction savings? We talked about that earlier. We talked about, Mr. Horadell talked about enhanced savings and value.
Matthew, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, what we're watching here is Hillsborough County getting ready to vote on the Tampa Bay Rays Stadium. There's been all morning long a parade of people for and against. A lot of citing of the Battery in Atlanta, and as kind of their jumping off point. And yesterday, the city of Tampa, by 4-3, voted to approve the stadium. If Hillsborough County, which is getting ready to vote, votes in affirmative, then the new stadium project will come to fruition. So that's what we're watching here for those of you who don't know what's going on at the moment. It's basically, at this point, it's procedural. What you're seeing is each county commissioner gets a moment, a few moments to ask questions of these county lawyers or any experts that they have brought in to make it work. Right now, if I had to guess, it's a 7-person deal. We're looking at 5-2-4-3, one of the two, the affirmative. They will pass this deal, and they will get they'll get it done, and the stadium will be moving forward. So that's where we are right now. And I thought that since we came on at such a interesting and fun time, that we might be able to get some interest out of this by finding out what's going on as a vote actually happens. So courtesy, by the way, the video is courtesy of Hillsborough County. It is a free entity, therefore we're not going to be flagged for using video that we don't own in that regard. So anyway, you've been to the Battery, you know how successful it is. And I think that, with the opportunity that Tampa Bay has, you've also been to the Trop and know how not so much fun that is. So yeah, we're getting close to the vote time, and and we're going to dump in and dump out just to see what is going on. Let's go back to the video, and then we'll come back to us. All right, what we're talking about at this point in time is CIT dollars. CIT dollars is tax dollars, but they're specially focused on certain situations. In other words, for those of you who don't understand this, you have to CIT dollars has to go to building something, okay, and that can't be schools. It can't be. It's literally you're building specific, um, and buildings that uh, can in some way, shape, or form develop commerce. Okay, so in other words, you might be building a building where you're going to want to use it as a condominium building, or you may want to use it as an office building or something like that. That's where CIT dollars come in. So for those of you wondering what the hell does all this mean, that's what it means. Matt, when I don't know if you remember when Cobb County did the deal, there were a lot of people that thought that was a silly situation, and sometimes these types of things hit, sometimes they don't.
Yeah, I've seen some of the, I guess, public backlash that this deal is receiving
Hmm.
online. There is a significant portion of people in Hillsborough County, I think, that don't want this deal done.
Hmm.
If I was guessing, those people typically fall into the non-sports fan category.
Well, some of them do. I think part of the problem whenever you get involved in things like this is people think that there's money to be had. In other words, there's 875, let's, for the sake of argument, 850 million. Let's see if Ken Hagen's about to call the vote.
So as I continue to look at this, we have to think about that the mixed development is not just a side issue, and the development risk remains, but the revised agreement kind of links that public return through that investment process, or not the investment, the tiered appendix that's in the back, and provides stronger protections for the overall exposure. Doesn't guarantee the development, and I was kind of slightly disappointed, but I understand this, and I think that the Rays and certainly their ownership, they're all real estate developers. This is where they're making money. They got a 99-year lease with HCC in the state. They own the pads. They lease the dirt. The pads is where they're going to make the money on, right? And ultimately, that's where we are going to make the money on. So it's not considered the larger unprotected structure that was before us last week. And that concern, again, is not new. And in fact, in June, I spoke to Bonnie about, I proffered a thought experiment with Bonnie in June, because in June, we all saw what was going on with the city of Tampa. City of Tampa dropped the ball with the CRA, in my opinion. They didn't send up the land use agreement, the future land use for
Meanwhile, back at the ranch here, Matt, what's going on right now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. What's going on right now, and thanks for telling me about the audio situation. We fixed that.
Yeah.
Is that when he talks about these two young women he's talking about, the staff members, as crazy as it sounds, these city councilmen, and yesterday's county commission the same way, they don't talk in negotiations with the team. They have a staff, the staff negotiates. Then they bring back information to each and every member of the city council yesterday, the county commission today. So when they talk about, I didn't like what I saw, well, they didn't negotiate. This is crazy. This is why you wonder, what exactly happens, okay? City councils, county commissions do not actively negotiate deals. Staff members of the commission and the city council are the ones who negotiate the deals. They then bring the deal to the city council or the county commission, whereby they then look at it. They've not spoken to any member of the Rays, or I'm just using the Rays as an example, with any of the key members of the ownership group or the negotiations group. So when they say, well, it wasn't to my liking, well, unless you're a mind reader, there's no other way of knowing what the hell's going on. So that's what makes this such a clunky situation.
Yeah, it's an inefficient process for sure.
Well, and it makes, it's one of those things where you want to just go in there and go, why can't 7 people get into a room with the negotiating team of the Rays and legal counsel and craft something, rather than going back and forth between, oh, wait a minute, this is what I got on Friday, is we're just using, him as an example. I'm not beating on him. He's just doing what any commissioner would do. And said, as he said, I didn't like it on Friday. Then it came back to me, over the weekend. I thought it was better, but still didn't like it. Sent it back. Okay. All of this is you're making your staff run back and forth and negotiate on the fly. And he literally, he said himself, he got the papers on Tuesday. This document is probably 100, 150 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not so sure these guys, some of them, are savvy enough to know what the hell they're even reading.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're going through so many different channels, and it almost turns it into you've now got a stadium deal coming down to not exactly, but what feels like a game of he said, she said,
Hmm.
because you're having to work through so many channels.
True. And you also have a situation where, and this happened yesterday, where there was accusations made to the about the deal being, one thing, and the city attorney stood up and said, wait a minute, that's not what it was. It's not written that way. If you go to page 7 and you look at page 7 and you look at paragraph 5, that's where it is. So the problem was that this person who asked the question and accused the team of not doing what they're supposed to do didn't have didn't have the ability to read and understand what the hell it was in front of them.
Yeah, that's again, you're dealing with people that don't always like this. This is a very large situation, and sometimes
Right.
it's above their pay grade.
What's the largest deal? The largest public-private deal in Tampa history.
Hmm.
And there's been some big deals in Tampa history, but this one's the biggest. It eventually is approximately worth somewhere in the neighborhood between $5 and $7 billion once it's all put together. It
Mm.
includes a campus where, think about this, you go to a college on the same campus as a baseball stadium across the street from the NFL stadium and around the corner from where the New York Yankees training facility is.
Yeah.
There's hotels, there's restaurants, there's um, open air opportunities, there's places to live. All of that is on your campus. You don't have to, if you could get, you can get a job as a server while you're, going to school and not have to get in the car once to go to your job.
Yeah, and I saw one of the complaints, talking in what they were talking about with concerns to this is they wanted somebody was afraid that the college would be affected. That
Right.
they're I think it was something along the lines of their learning spaces potentially being shrunken down, or maybe the learning spaces that they currently have aren't they don't feel are proper, and they would have
Mhm.
preferred, like the funds to go to that, which I
Mhm.
don't think, based on what you were talking about in terms of the tax dollars, is something that would actually apply to these funds. Um, but it's it's just, I mean, it will bring a lot to that area in terms of business and what you're able to do in the Tampa area.
Well, and if you think about, let's go back to the college for a moment, Hillsborough College. If you bring in tech firms, right, you automatically have an incubator where you can try different projects with the help of the educators and the students who can beta test a number of different things for you.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
those become very important and very high, paying jobs. They're not, just servers. They're, which is not a bad way to make a living, for us college kid. But, we're talking about programmers. We're talking about, code writers. We're talking about a number of different jobs that pay a lot more than minimum wage.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an important piece that maybe people don't consider when they voice their concerns about the college and the
Mhm.
potential impacts on it. Is
Now
there's some
let's see what.
plus
I'm
coming
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Let's see what's going on here. Maybe they're about ready to vote.
Made earlier specifically for, I caught you off guard, didn't I? Come on, Allison. The motion and the portion that relates to the CDA.
I will need a minute to get that information for you.
I can say it. You have, oh, can, Fine. Would you mind restating that motion, please, sir?
All right, I'll just say the whole thing. It's quick. It's a motion to approve the development funding agreement, guarantee, and the team non-relocation agreement in substantial forms presented, and allow the county attorney to conform all the documents, including the City of Tampa approved documents, and correct any Scrivener's errors. Additionally, for the community benefits agreement, will be no less than $50 million split between the county receiving 65%, city 35%, with an expectation of a timing mechanism where investments in meaningful community benefits begin immediately and are not backloaded. So that was.
Did you just add that little last part there, maybe?
Huh?
I don't remember. Anyway.
I got it written down.
The guy you just saw, Ken Babby, is the chairman of the Hillsborough County Commission. It's Ken Babby who has been battling for the better part of over a decade to get this thing done. And so you can imagine, his anxiety level at this point as they near a vote. I believe, look, there's politics 101. You never call a vote if you don't know how it's going to end up. So I believe Ken knows he's got the votes to get this across the finish line.
Yeah.
Okay. The problem is that we now have each and every one of these county commissioners who may someday want to aspire to higher office, taking this opportunity to show, they're either for it, against it, or whatever, and why. Hold on one second. Let's check in and see if Babby's ready to give us a go.
The amounts and the times.
Chair Hayden, you accept the amendment?
Absolutely. I do want to ask Julia her thoughts.
The way you wrote that in line with how you had your original motion, it would be that the agreement would have a total cap, and then the other pieces of that would be embedded in the CBA to come forward to. So it's a little bit parsed out by just what's in this agreement, and that's the way I understood it, and then what you would request that I put into a CBA that I bring back to you on the timing mechanism.
And I understood the 60 million, but and then did you say the first 20% was over 5 years?
4 years.
Oh, 4 years.
Correct. Yours is written, mine's typed.
I can't read my own handwriting.
So you accept the amendments, Chair?
May I speak just for a moment? Yesterday, the city of Tampa provided us, I'm going to use it as a ceiling of $75 million from Councilwoman Pertak. I thought that was a bit much. Looking at other agreements around the country, Kansas City Royals and some of these other places that you have out there, those numbers fall, I think, within that line of 50 to 70, 65 million. I think, though, that for the pain and suffering that we've had to go through with the expedited schedule and the amount of money that we're not receiving through our fiscal stewardship of our dollars, should at least equate to some kind of benefit for our community, that we're seeing people out here that are going to see a direct benefit from the raise, because it's still going to be 3 to 4 years, 5 years before we're going to get any benefit from that. The raise have a great opportunity to go out there through our CBAs, go out in the community and show them what they're doing today after this is done, whether that's through Little League fields, whether that's through different agreements, whatever those may be. I mean, can't recall how many are in there. 9 pages of ideas, but this is an opportunity for them to do that out on the front side. So for that, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. That was going to be my next question. Are you still on the second? It is my pleasure to get to call this vote. Please record your votes.
Motion carries 5-2. Commissioners Cameron Cepeda and Woolston voted no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we adjourn, before before we adjourn, first I want to thank all the board members for all of your hard work, for today's robust discussion and for approving this generational development. Commissioner Myers, my apologies. I didn't say it earlier, but a change is going to come. I also want to thank everyone who came down today, and really everyone who participated throughout this process over the last several months. Most of all, though, I want to thank the person who was responsible for me being in this seat and responsible for my love of baseball. His name is also Ken Hagan. He's my dad. Dad, we did it. We're adjourned.
Okay, let me not share the screen anymore because we don't need it. And there we are. All right, so we were witness to history. Tampa Bay now has their stadium funding, and it's going to be an interesting situation to see how this whole thing works now.
Yeah, but again, I think it's a necessary change coming to Tampa. We talked about. I've spoken, a couple of times on here when we talked about this potential stadium deal, about how they needed an improvement. They needed an improvement on the Trop. They needed an improvement on the Trop, one, for the building that it is, and two, for the location that it's in. I would say neither were ideal. And let's be honest, they've put a product on the field for these past 5 years that's been worthy of having a better building than what they have now with new ownership. And seemingly, granted, there's still, a CBA to sort out, and then after that you have to go prove it. But there appears to be a willingness to spend money on the team now from this new ownership group and have a little bit more financial investment in the Rays overall. And a new stadium would be worthy of the team that they are capable of putting on the field with the infrastructure that they've built throughout their coaching staff and their ability to develop players. If you pair that with a financial investment and free agency, you have a chance to build something special in Tampa.
Yeah, and I think it's basically going to be where it was supposed to be. For those of you who know where Steinbrenner Field is, which of course is where the Yankees practice and do their spring training. The good news is that that's where the stadium was supposed to be, and so within a few blocks, it's where it is supposed to be now. So they got it done. The A's have their thing done, and now Major League Baseball has two other issues that needs to be adjudicated, and that is one, and it's not an easy one. Will they be playing baseball next year?
Yeah.
And two, once they get that out of the way, the addition of two new franchises, because they've been waiting forever, seemingly, for the Rays and the A's to get their new buildings, at which point they will go to expansion. My guess, and that's all it is Salt Lake City on the west side, and on the east side, it's down between two teams. One, in an area you just left, Raleigh-Durham, and Nashville.
Yeah. Again,
you went to the ball game the other night. We're not going to get into what craziness you had, and thank God your gastric situation is not bad. But Raleigh-Durham's an area which a lot of people don't look at and probably should.
Yeah, a bit bigger population than I think people really realize. They had the night that I was there, they had the Stanley Cup there, and I mean there was a line that was, it felt like it was wrapped around the stadium just to see the Stanley Cup. They came out and they support the Hurricanes. That's NHL. I think there's a real appetite for baseball in that area as well. I do have a hard time seeing Major League Baseball pass over Nashville in favor of the Raleigh-Durham area. But it's two worthwhile areas. One is a tourist stop more than the other, though.
I think that why I'm putting it in that general, area is because it basically boils down to like any other situation when you want to make you want to propose the opportunity to buy a ball club and establish a stadium, and that is ownership and the amount of city dollars and in public and private dollars, just like this deal here. 66% of the raised building is privately funded.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So percentage wise, it's way over. Plus, the Rays ownership group decided that they would cover all of the cost overages. Okay. That was so they could get an expedited deal done, meaning they want to start digging holes in the dirt in September.
Yeah.
So to get that done, they took on more, you can call it debt if that's what you prefer to call it, or investment, depending on how you look at it, to get what they wanted. And I think that's what you have to look at in Nashville and Raleigh-Durham, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to own the team, number one, or there'll be ownership groups that will be wanting to it. And number two, which municipality is best suited to do this right now? Now, why I list Nashville as a kind of I would say Nashville's one and Raleigh-Durham's two. Nashville just built a stadium for the football team where they spent a great deal of money.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not they have the capability of going back to the well, in a reasonably short period of time to build a baseball stadium, I think rests on who owns it. And if the owner's got the money to do it, then they may have to pay a little bit more in a public-private deal in many ways, like the Rays did, to get the job done, to get it passed, so that they don't get passed by Raleigh-Durham.
Yeah, Jim, just a quick question, because just based on I think there's another location that has an appetite for baseball, formerly had a team, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was at least tossed on the table. I don't know what their financial situation would look like, but do you think there's a chance that Montreal is one of the cities that is up there in consideration?
I would hope so. I would. There's ownership in Montreal. It's never been a problem. The ownership aspect of it. What's been a problem is they can't get the way that Canada and provinces and such work is a great deal different than the way we work. And so to get a stadium built, it requires a significant amount of government oversight and government help. I couldn't, if I had that type of money, go in and take my $5 billion and say, I'm going to build a stadium right here on this land that I own. It would still be required to receive a significant amount of oversight from the province and from the Canadian government.
Yeah.
So it's not as easy and cut and dried, but if I had a choice of where I would want to see, an Eastern franchise, I would 100% want to see it in Montreal. Montreal is a hell of a good baseball town. Always has been, always will be. And so I think that, and I don't think they were done well by Major League Baseball in the first place. So, without question, I'd love to see Montreal in that mix. I didn't list them there because right now they just are having something that they've had for almost 20 years, and that's problem of getting, the powers that be politically on board with them building a baseball stadium.
Yeah, and that does, I can't think of a more, elegant way to say it. It just sucks.
Mhm.
Because it is a good baseball town. It was a baseball town that you look back. I mean, Pedro was there when they were in Montreal. Vlad was there when they were in Montreal. They had a good product on the field. They had fan support, and of those four cities that are listed, they actually have the highest population
Yeah.
in terms of when you're talking about potentially filling out a stadium. Well, there's no guarantee that maybe the appetite for baseball is a little better in the other three cities, and
Mhm.
with smaller populations, they would still fill a stadium on a more consistent basis. I doubt that to be true, um, given the fact that it has been there before and it has been successful there before. I would be surprised if it were to fail, but yeah, those extra hurdles that are in the way for Montreal does muddy up the situation a bit.
Yeah, which is a shame because I think it would be great to have them back, and they also would have a national. Um, their TV money would be good because they would have, just like the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays have a contract with sports. What do they call it? Sportsnet, uh, and so Sportsnet, you know, you can watch the Jays games in Vancouver, or you can watch them in Nova Scotia every game. That would be the same situation that would happen in Montreal. Montreal would have an entire country watching their game,
Yeah.
uh, which would be fantastic. Plus, it's as funny as it sounds. This obviously they didn't benefit by interleague play, but Montreal and Boston have a nice little hockey situation going, and have for a long time. So there's I think people forget where Montreal actually is. Toronto is more to the center of the country, and basically north of Detroit, while way further east is where Montreal is,
hmm
and Montreal is about a 6-7 hour drive from Boston.
Yeah, and that's you're starting to work into the proximity of
Mhm.
things, and
Mhm.
there's going to be that's not that bad of a journey given the fact that it is in Canada. It's not just right across the border, to my understanding. I don't have a great understanding of the,
No, it's not, but it's
but
a fun trip.
Toronto, yeah, Toronto is a little bit more kind of like right across the border, to my understanding. Uh,
Mhm. Well, that's it's Toronto's across the border from Buffalo.
yeah,
Mhm.
but you're still talking about again a place that has the support and somewhere that is a big enough city that it would draw opposing fans. And I
Yeah.
think that's something worth noting is when you think about how will fans travel, and a lot of it is based on where these teams will be placed divisionally, that is going to either help or hurt, because there's a regional aspect to the teams that you will be seeing the most and how it helps fill your building. That's why, if you go down to Raleigh Durham, you would have to assume that they find their way into the division with the Atlanta Braves. Like,
Mhm.
that's something where you can kind of work against each other. I know you'd be pulling from the fan base in Atlanta, um, so they may not love that, but you would get good traveling support. The more times you see the Braves in your building, the
Sure.
same goes in Montreal. The more northernmost teams you would get there is the better travel and the better, I guess, better opposing fan support you would have as well.
Well, I think the other thing, Matt, which I'm was fortunate enough when I was doing baseball to go to Montreal. Uh, it's like traveling to I mean, this is going to sound stupid. Of course, it's traveling to a foreign country because you're going to Canada. But Montreal French is the first language in Montreal. English was the second, obviously. So when you go to Montreal, there's a very interesting charm to it from a standpoint of you're kind of like you're doing baseball somewhere in France. It doesn't, Montreal is not Paris. Okay, so let's get that off the table real quick. But it's a very lovely town, and it's a very there's Quebec City, which isn't that far away. So there's a lot. When I know a lot of people who made that first trip, up to Montreal, and then decided, this is really a cool place. I'll come back. And so there's, baseball fans enjoyed it. You're talking about history. Jackie Robinson, before he became a Dodger, the Dodgers sent him to their spring train. I'm sorry, their farms team in Montreal, where he was widely accepted. Roberto Clemente, also Montreal. So their history of being involved and evolving before some of the places here in the United States goes all the way back, to the 40s and 50s when they were minor league team.
See, I was unaware of the history involving Jackie Robinson, that both him and Roberto Clemente had been there. But yeah, it's a really good baseball town. It's a history-rich baseball town. It deserves a look. Is it going to get it? Again, I think you highlighted it well. They have some problems outside of Major League Baseball. But if it did, it would be a return to baseball in a very good spot.
Oh, 100%. Now, let's fast forward to what's going on this week. You got a 4-game series. You got the Yankees. You got the Red Sox. Give us a preview, dude. This is a big series.
It is. And I'll be honest. I think the Yankees right now are probably the team that's better suited to come out of this thing, having won the series. You could see a 2-2 split. I could see that happening. But the Red Sox got their 1 and 2 out of the way in Miami. Peyton Tolle and Sonny Gray both went in Miami. And so those are two guys that are not going to be pitching in this series. Meanwhile, tonight, starting for the Yankees, you have Cam Schlittler. Everybody knows the history dating back to the wild card game. I don't know if people understand that he kind of, not he himself, but the game that he pitched was the kickoff point for this Red Sox turnaround. They hung 4 on him. They all were unearned by some ungodly, I don't understand how it works. He gave up a home run and they were unearned runs. But they hung 4 on him. They won that first game in Boston, and then they went on to sweep the Yankees, and they went on this run that has led them to now they're in this 4-game set with the ability to flip the wild card positioning. If Boston flips the wild card positioning this weekend, I don't see it going back. I think this is a case really where if you come out and you have a winner of this series, whether it be New York or whether it be Boston, I think that's going to stick. And it may not make as much sense, with Boston, because if Boston flips it, then it's like a half game or 1 game. I can't remember the exact math of which it would be.
It'd be a half game.
It'd be a half game. And so you're like, man, that's a half game. How are you saying you think it sticks? I just think that this is a series that, and seeing it back and forth is, some people have, they're like, oh, this is the Red Sox World Series. Mainly Yankee fans saying that. I think it's been flipped around a little bit the other way, maybe less so, at least what I've seen to this point. This is big for both of these teams. Both of these teams understand the importance of home field and what kind of momentum this can give them in a shot in the arm kind of a position. Because after this series, your rosters are expanding. You've got good momentum, and you've got a wild card lead going into the rest of the season. And specifically speaking to Boston, they don't have a murderer's row left on their schedule if they are able to win this series and put themselves in that position and clear the ground out completely between them and the Yankees, I think they're in a position better suited in terms of the injuries and guys coming back off of injury than New York is. And New York has their rotation, and their rotation is fantastic. Their offense hasn't been as fantastic, and that's something that isn't just going to magically change. It will once Aaron Judge comes back, but when is he coming back? Do we know? I don't have a good timeline on that. I know that Roman Anthony's close to returning. I've seen he's 7 of 23, I think, between double and triple A. There was a thought that he might be there tonight for them. He's still at Polar Park. He's going to continue to play triple A baseball. I think he said he wanted to get a few more bats before he was ready to come back. But if they win this and then they continue to get healthy, Boston does, I don't think they're relinquishing that wild card. The same way if the Yankees are able to build on the 2-game lead that they have, I think it's 2, maybe 2.5, then I don't think that Boston's going to be in a position to come back from it because the Yankees they still have the pitching staff. They have the pitching staff that they can get away with not having a great offense and still win baseball games. And really, a fashion where they only have to score 2 or 3 runs because their pitching can be that good when it is going right.
Yep, and I think that we're running out of ball games, everybody. That's where things really start to get crazy. By the way, tonight, if you are a fan of the Yankees and the Red Sox, the only place you're going to be able to see it is Apple TV. Okay. It's Apple TV's game at 7:00, and Seattle at Toronto is their number 2 game. Peacock has the Astros and the Mets, and the Phillies and the Angels on Peacock. Major League Baseball Network has Arizona and San Francisco. But if you are a fan of watching the Red Sox and the Yankees, there's only one place you can watch it, and that is exclusively tonight on Apple TV. Major League Baseball Network has the Red Sox-Yankee Saturday game, which will be at 1:00. I'm flipping over real quick to see where we are. Boston and the Yankees on Sunday. That's local, so it'll be Nesson and Yes, but it's also on the ESPN app. And there you go.
Fox has the nightcap of the doubleheader on Saturday.
Right.
TBD versus TBD in that matchup. Jake Bennett's going in the early game for Boston on Saturday.
Right.
I think you may see from New York, the reporting is that they pushed back Max Fried, that he will go on Saturday at some point. He's coming off of a short.
Was there a reason for that?
He's coming off of a short IL stint. Like that's what I say push back. He's coming off of an IL stint, so they haven't seen him in I think 10 days. I think that was more of a precautionary measure that they had. I would still be surprised if he went very deep when he does pitch on Saturday. It's either going to be game 1 or game 2, and you would assume that they probably go to the bullpen after that. I know that Boston's using game 2 as a bullpen game. That's where you're going to see an opener, and then you're going to see Brian Bayo, who's been fantastic out of the bullpen. He's got an ERA under 1 since he's moved there for Boston in the bulk role on Saturday night. And then Sunday, you're going to see Carlos Rodon at some point in this series. I guess they're trying to decide which game they want Rodon to pitch on Saturday, because it's Will Warren versus Ranger Suarez on Sunday, and the what is that? Is that Sunday Night Baseball, I would assume?
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's not. It's a 1:35.
No, wait a minute. It's on Major League Baseball Network.
Yeah, it's a 1:35 first pitch, and that's. I mean, Will Warren has a 4.39 ERA. Ranger Suarez has a 3.5. Yeah, those are 2 really legitimately good options, at starting pitching, and that may be your worst pitching matchup that you're going to get this weekend.
Not a bad group.
No.
We talked a little bit, speaking, we talked about the Rays Stadium. there, we talked about what was going to happen when Mr. Peralta got his opportunity to go down and talk to the pitching staff there. Was a gurus in that regard. And so his last outing, which was against Detroit on Thursday, he pitched 6 innings of shutout baseball.
Yeah, and what I will say is it's not as much results based as what I would look for with Freddie Peralta. I haven't seen his line from that game, but it's pitches and the ability to go deeper into games. Because if you remember this season in New York, there were a couple of times where he was pitching really well. He wasn't pitching accurately, and so he was surrendering a lot of walks, maybe only making it 4 or 5 innings, and that was an issue. So seeing him go 6, maybe seeing him go 7 innings, those are positive signs. Even if he's giving up a couple runs, a few runs along the way, is you want to see that command back in the zone, because that was part of the reason that he was struggling, getting them into hitters counts and allowing them to kind of tee off on what they knew were going to be hittable pitches once he worked himself really into those hit counts.
Yep. So, well, it's going to be a fun final dash for the for the pennant, especially in the AL East. Let's flip over to college football real quick. Tonight kicks things off as week 0. You got Idaho at Cal Poly. That's a 10 o'clock kickoff on ESPN with Roxy Bernstein and Dave Clawson. Carolina and TCU, we've talked about that, of course, is your game in Ireland. It's a noon start. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that game, we talked about it from the UNC side, how there's, North Carolina's been mired in some controversy this offseason. Steve Belichick has officially, it's been announced that he will not be in Ireland. Their defensive coordinator, Bill Belichick's son, he is still on medical leave and away from the team, so he's not going to be there for them. But on the flip side, TCU found itself in some controversy yesterday after they pulled the press credentials of the, what was the publication they pulled the credentials for? I believe it was like the Star Telegram.
Okay.
And that was in relation to a conflict that they reported on, which was public record by TCU police. The report is that Sonny Dykes did not like it, did not like the reporting for whatever reason, and now there's a little bit of controversy surrounding TCU, maybe not as in depth as North Carolina has faced, but now they've got a little controversy that's headed their way, on their way out of the country as well.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to see that kind of stuff done. It's a Bush League thing. You're a coach, you're going to be, there's going to be people who are going to write bad stuff about you. And that just goes with the job. And I don't know the situation around why the credentials were pulled. If they were pulled just because Sonny Dykes didn't like them, then that's not right.
The official thing is TCU has banned the Star Telegram, the Fort Worth Star Telegram.
Right.
Pulled credentials.
Not a small newspaper, by the way.
Yeah. Over reporting of a locker room assault that resulted in a case filing with TCU campus police. The writer or reporter, Stephen M. Johnson on Twitter or on X, has been told that the decision stemmed from the victim receiving threats after the reporting, but Stephen never identified the victim until the victim made a public statement on his Instagram about the assault 3 days after his initial reporting. The reporter still intends to take his trip to Ireland, despite having his credential pulled. The Star Telegram is the only full-time outlet that is covering TCU athletics.
Well, that's a interesting turn of events. So basically, the reporter didn't out the guy.
No.
The guy outed himself on on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna, based on my understanding, it was very, like, there was no identification made in the initial reporting,
Hmm.
and the only reason that identification was made was due to the individual posting on their social media.
Normally, when something like that happens, um, the person who's involved isn't named, and that's simply to protect their identity um, while the case is adjudicated. So, it seems to me like the reporter did all the right things.
Yeah, and there's a account called TCU Scouting. This is very obviously a fan account,
Mhm.
and they went through a four thread thing, or a four post like thread they created about it, and essentially the light, at least if you're looking at it through a TCU lens, is they the TCU did not like getting incorrectly painted in a bad light, is the final sentence of this four post thing, and I'm very confused as to how they were painted in a bad light over this.
I can't think of I can't think of a way. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't understand how you could be painted in a bad light when the reporter goes out of his way not to name the person.
Okay, I see now in reading it. So, with knowledge of the incident, Fields, who was a safety that had been dismissed,
Hmm.
um, said that Fields had felt targeted by teammates with insults and threats, had repeatedly alerted coaches and staff that made no meaningful efforts to de escalate the situation, which framed the episode as a result of unaddressed mistreatment that ultimately boiled over. Um, and days later, Fields and his family explicitly disputed that account, saying Fields and his family did not view the lead up as bullying or mistreatment. Um, and that's from an earlier account. That's
Hmm.
from a different reporting done by the Star Telegram. But the report basically is saying that this dispute stemmed from that initial reporting, about this dismissal of safety Jacob Fields.
So again, I don't understand why the reporter's getting banned because he didn't do anything.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not a good look for TCU. I think overall, there was, and you can hit the rumor mill and see some of this stuff, but there's rumors, about Sonny Dykes at previous locations, kind of, wanting to have a lot of control over the media coverage of his teams.
Hmm.
And they almost attributed to a small town, like, high school football coach kind of deal, in terms of the way that he wants to be able to control the press around his team.
Hmm.
And if that's true, I think it would make sense. Not saying that it is, but I definitely think it's overall just a little bit odd. I don't think that, based on what I've read so far, I don't think anything's been misreported, misattributed,
Hmm.
and it doesn't seem like they've really crossed any ethical lines in terms of that. It feels a little bit more that things kind of aren't going TCU's way in the locker room right now, and
Hmm.
they don't like that it's being reported on.
Well, you know, if the only newspaper in your town that covers you is the credentials you pull, then fans are going to get a lot of stuff from fan boards and the website of the school. They're not going to get much in the way of, I mean, this reporter who's going to Ireland and probably buying a ticket and sitting in the stands will
Hmm.
still write a story.
Yep.
So whether
Yeah,
he's sitting in the press box or he's sitting in the stands, he's still going to write a story.
and I think the thing that I find interesting or curious, is this doesn't, like, get rid of his sources. Like, this is still a guy that has probably built up a rapport at some point throughout the TCU athletic department, and probably will still have some sources inside of the TCU athletic department, maybe even around the football team, that he can get information without having his credentials as well.
Right. And also, there's situations, and I've seen it, where the SID's office will call up a reporter and say, look, Coach so-and-so wasn't happy with what was written. He's, ticked off at you. And just so you know, he's probably not going to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
So they give you a heads up sometimes. If they're a good SID, they will give you a heads up. Sometimes they'll give you a heads up and say, look, I don't want to do this, but I've got to pull your credential.
Yeah.
And you'll ask why, and they'll say, well, it's up the chain. It's not my decision. So they may not out who actually told them to do it, but they will just say, look, it's out of my hands.
Yeah. And I mean,
that happens a lot. I will also say, having attended these broadcaster coaches meetings that we have, you might be surprised how many coaches are not crazy about sitting down just with guys who, are doing their broadcast for that game.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say if I was, I wouldn't, I am all that surprised by it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the guy that I'm most knowledgeable on, in Kirby Smart, I go out to say that he probably doesn't love doing media in any form or fashion, based
Mm-hmm.
on, just what I've gathered from him, but it's still a necessary part of it, and those meetings add value to a broadcast. And I know it doesn't seem like it, or maybe you doesn't feel like it if you're just consuming it on a regular basis, but they get a lot of information, or can get a lot of information from those meetings if the coaches are forthright with them. And it helps when you have a coach that is forthright, because you can add a little bit of extra depth to a broadcast that you otherwise wouldn't have had.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me do a quick hit here from my buddy Jeff Pomeroy. I know a lot of people like to listen to their home radio broadcasts while also watching television. This week, a company called Homestream, and you can get the app in the App Store if you're an Apple person, or you can get it in Google Play if you happen to be an Android person. What it does is it's an app that allows you, and there's this week it's Georgia Tech, Duke, and I'm missing somebody. Hang on a second. Yeah, Georgia Tech, Duke, and NC State. They're being the first three that are being rolled out, where you can take the app and it will sync the radio audio up to your television. So if you want to give it a try, I know Duke's playing this weekend, and I think Georgia Tech's playing this weekend. So you get an opportunity to and see what you think. So Homestream. I'm sorry. It's HOMESTREAM. Homestream. You might want to check it out. Jeff's a friend. He's run PR for them over there. Was a Turner for a long, long time, and it's kind of cool because a lot of people do like to listen to, their broadcasters in that situation. Let me run real quick down the rest of the slate here. San Jose State. That's going to be 3:00 game on ESPN with San Jose State at USC. Southern State and Alabama State, or Southern, I'm sorry, and Alabama State is on ESPNU at 3:30 is North Carolina State and Virginia. That's on ESPN. Jackson State and North Dakota State is on CBS SN. It's at 5:30. At 6:30, Sacramento State and Eastern Michigan. That's on ESPN Plus. The CW has Florida State's opener against New Mexico State. That's a 7 o'clock game. East Texas, excuse me, East Texas A&M. Okay, that sounds like a made-up school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it's not, but it does sound like something that we would make up. No offense to you folks out there at East Texas A&M. They're at Mercer. Hawaii makes the trip to Stanford. That's on the ACC network.
Hey, really quickly, watch
Sure.
Hawaii's quarterback. If you're watching that game, watch Hawaii's quarterback. He's really good. He was a freshman last year. Another left-handed guy. He's fun to watch.
Okay, cool. DC is where we go next, and that's Alabama A&M and Howard. That game's 7:30 nationally seen on ABC. Tiffany Green and Jay Walker have that call. Prairie View A&M and Trenton State. That's a 9 o'clock game on ESPN2. 10 o'clock, Memphis UNLV. Tim Brando and Devin Gardner. Calling that. Then we actually have one Sunday game, and that's in primetime on ESPN2, and that's West Alabama and Tuskegee playing in Montgomery, Alabama. So that's our first week of college football coming down starting tonight. So pretty cool from that standpoint. We get a lot of that, so good on them. And all right, gang, we're about to get out of here for a Friday. Many thanks to Matthew, and we enjoyed the fact that we were able to witness the Rays get their stadium earlier in the show. It was a little clunky toward the end there, but that's the wheels of commerce versus the wheels of politics, not necessarily spin at the same speed, to say the least. But it got done, and now we'll see what the next phase goes. We'll also see what the next phase in expansion goes. But any final thoughts here, Matthew, before we get out of town?
Oh yeah, two quick things.
Sure.
The Tour Championship is underway. Both are going to be in golf. Tour Championship's underway. Menwu Elite currently leads at 8 under par. That's 2 shots better than a 5-way tie for second at 6 under par. And then you have a really strong grouping of what looks to be 7 or 8 players. I think it's 7 at a tie for 7th, which is 5 under. So you've got really good condensed leaderboard in what is now a 29-man field after J.J. Spawn withdrew from the event in the Tour Championship. And one other thing that I just kind of wanted to touch on, I found it interesting. There's a large group in YouTube golf called Good. I'm not a major fan of their work, but they're in the space. They're one of the bigger brands in the space, and they released a bad ad. I mean, there's just no other way to paint it other than it wasn't an ad in good taste. Didn't look good coming across, but it was supposed to be themed after the movie Obsession. And the backlash that this company has received for this, I mean, they've effectively torn this brand, down to the studs over what was a bad ad, but one that it's puzzling, this reaction. Callaway ended their partnership. Golf Galaxy, PGA Superstore, Dick's pulled all of their merchandise off the shelves. They pulled it from the websites. They lost their tour sponsorship over this. They were the title sponsor of a tour event, I think in, what is it? It was either September or October, in Texas. They lost all of it over this. And I'm very confused by the backlash. I mean, some of it is received, some of it is deserved.
Is that the Liam Neeson speech or what?
No, it was the initial ad that they released. It had it was one of their guys, and mind you, this is a company that, again, not a fan of theirs, but I'm just putting the facts out there. Is they started a channel that is revolved. They started a women's channel. Like, it's not some of the moves that they have made in their past. You can tell that this isn't intended to be like I guess fear mongering or keeping women out of the space.
Right.
But it was perceived that way, and it's received a heavy amount of backlash because in the ad, I mean, it basically starts off with one of the guys saying, "Hey, don't touch my driver," to one of the girls, and then effectively shoulder checking her onto the ground, or not effectively. That's what happened. Again, in bad taste, but the backlash that it's received has been otherworldly, and I honestly I think it's a bit undeserved.
Well, normally when something like that happens, there's a true reason, right? Okay, what we're seeing right now is backlash, and a reason, which, valid or not, is a reason. Okay.
Yeah.
But if there's enough people in the space who don't want them there anymore,
yeah,
then it's kind of like, okay, you just gave us an excuse to tank you. We were praying for something to tank you, and you just did it for us. Thank you very much.
I was kind of curious because there's been a large movement, specifically over this year in golf, and it's you can identify it on on X, Twitter, whatever you still call it. I think it's #shrink or #shrink the game, something like that, where there's a lot of stuff that effectively, I would say Good was probably the poster child for that people went out of the game of golf. And again, I'm a little bit more on that side, but it was still a brand that was more, appealing to a younger audience in golf, which is still a plus in terms of growing the game of golf.
Sure. It's important.
Because I think some people just want to like kill growth in the game of golf and just to get these things that they don't like out of it. And that's also not the correct way to go. But I wondered if there wasn't an underlying, we wanted to get out from under these deals, or we wanted to be able to separate ourselves from this company because we feel like maybe the tides are shifting back in the direction of a little bit more traditional things in golf. And this was an effective opportunity to do that.
And kablooey. It didn't work. Well, you gotta be careful out there, boys and girls. Some of the bigger places, might have put pressure on Callaway. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons and situations of what to do and how to make this work. But if they're pushing the envelope, and it, golf is one of the problems, and I love golf, but one of the problems is they have never had a sense of humor. And there's a lot of seriousness taken that, it does get in the way of what, the difference between the country club class and the guys who just want to play golf. I think that you can't grow the game if all you want is a country club style situation. It's never going to happen.
No, it's impossible if that's that's maintaining the exclusivity of golf,
right? And it's not building anything, because the days of people buying into a country club and then just going out and have lunch and and just dad plays golf while the kids and mom are hanging out at the pool or playing tennis or something like that. Those days aren't there anymore. Nobody's paying $50,000 to join a club.
No, they are not.
That basically is more of a social organization than it is a golf club.
Yeah, yeah, it's. I think the way that the pricing in golf has gone, and inflation's everywhere, but the way that it has hit golf since 2020,
Mm-hmm.
and just the surge in pricing over the last 5 years, and I think it has a little bit less, a significant portion less to do with the economy itself rather than the boom of golf.
Mm-hmm.
And once it hit that boom, then things started to scale a little bit with the economy, I believe.
The other thing too, and I don't make this a little longer than normal. It should be, but one of the things that if you track it, one of the things that got people, both men and women, excited in golf was Topgolf.
Mm-hmm.
They had no idea. I mean, these people probably never picked up a club.
Yeah, and you go out there, you hit a few, and you're like, wow, this is enjoyable, and
That's fun.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, and one of the places that it kind of jump started.
Well, I have a nephew who's 7 years old, going on 30, and he went to Topgolf, and he, in a conversation we had, he basically said, "Okay, this is great. I want to play golf. Where do I play golf?"
Mm-hmm.
And basically, from my standpoint, it's like, "Whoa, Haas, just a second here. Okay, you don't go from Topgolf to start playing golf. You need to to understand that there's more to golf than just hitting a golf ball, off a tee, and trying to hit something at a target."
Uh-huh.
But the fact that he is so young and he got geeked out on it is good, I believe. And now hopefully we can figure out a way to turn him into someone who understands and appreciates golf.
Yeah. Yeah, start building Rory or Scotty over there.
There you go. All right, buddy. We'll see you on Monday. Everybody have a good weekend. Red Sox, Yankees, we already talked about that being the weekend battle, and college football gets underway. Good, bad, or indifferent, it's here. So we're happy to do it and happy to see it. So, okay, everybody, have a good weekend, and thanks for joining us this afternoon.